And the one thing that gets my goat the most, hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with an update video today. We'll have another chat while I go for a walk around the coastline here in Portugal about what's been happening in Spain over the last few days. So let's go. Now it's a blustery day today, as you can see behind me there, the Atlantic Ocean, very, very rough. And in fact, there is a severe weather warning today because of the strong winds. No forecast of rain, but in this part of Portugal the rain comes through fairly quickly, which I have found out over the last couple of days. Got caught in a couple of downpours and got a little bit wet, not too bad. The rain here comes and goes fairly quickly. It can be raining quite heavily for a minute or so, then it disappears. But unfortunately I got caught out and got a little bit wet. Little Mia got a little bit wet as well, but it's all part of spending time in this part of Portugal. And to be honest, I like to feel the wind in my face every now and again. Now I've got my cap on, as you can see, a usual feature of these walk around videos. That's basically to keep the hair on my head, because if I didn't have a cap on, my hair would be blown completely off. And the other thing that I'm going to say is that if the quality of the sound is not very good, the reason is the wind, but I've got my microphone under 2 layers of clothing here, so hopefully you'll be able to pick up the sound. But if it's not all that clear, again, I apologize. We can see the birds up in the sky there taking advantage of the strong winds, absolutely loving the conditions. I've had a couple of people in the comment section over the last month or so warning me to stay away from Portugal this winter because of the extreme weather conditions. Apparently it's been like this for the last couple of months. Quite a wet winter, stormy winter, but as I said, I don't mind this type of weather every now and again. Coming from a coastal city, Perth, weather's fairly similar when those storms come through. So there are some things in common between Perth and this part of Portugal, and as I said, that's what I like. We've been coming to Portugal for the last 14 years on a fairly regular basis, normally around 3 or 4 times a year. We come to Portugal for the summer months, of course, December, Easter, things like that. Whenever we get a bit of time, we come to this part of the world. And I remember when we first bought the apartment that we have here, the weather was absolutely terrible. I still remember that it rained non-stop for about 7 days. Very extreme rain conditions, very windy as well. So that week that we spent here still sticks in my mind, and this last week that we've been here has not been as wet as that one. A couple of local fishermen down there going to check out the weather conditions to see if it's worth throwing a line in the water. Don't know whether it is a good day for fishing or not, but you wouldn't catch me out there. Now the big news story that has been dominating the press this week in Spain was the announcement the other day by the government that they're going to give a €200 cheque to families in need. Families that are doing it tough at the moment with the cost of living increases, especially when it comes to grocery shopping. Supermarket prices, as we know, have been rising steadily for the last 6 to 8 months, and this year the government has decided to act on that and give a €200 cheque to around 4.7 million families, I believe. And they're also going to slash VAT on certain products, for example, fresh fruit and veg and milk and eggs and things like that, and also reduce VAT on some other items, for example, olive oil, which I mentioned the other day. And we had a few people in the chat section. Some people were positive about this, saying that it is a good idea. €200 will come in handy. Other people saying that €200 is not a huge amount of money, it won't go far. But I think it's being targeted at people that will appreciate having €200 extra deposited in their bank accounts come March. Because we have to remember what the requirements are going to be for people to access this cheque. Incomes of less than €27,000, I believe, and also assets worth less than €75,000. Now, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get this €200 cheque. I'm going to have to check my earnings for 2022, talk to my accountant, but I'm sure that for a lot of families, €200 would come in handy indeed. As far as I know, there's not going to be any control when it comes to those families spending that €200. Supposedly they should be spending it on food, but I don't think there's going to be any controls or checks in place to make sure that it does go on food spending. So no doubt some families will misuse those 200 euros. But when you give money out like this, putting it into somebody's bank account without any stipulations or any requirements, people can spend it on whatever they like, whether it be tobacco and alcohol, which I'm sure some people will. But anyway, that's for other people to worry about, not me. Now, another thing I want to talk about today, given that 2023 is just around the corner, is the introduction in 2023 of the infamous ZBEs, the low emission zones. And the last few videos that I have put out on this channel talking about this topic have certainly raised a lot of debate. In fact, some of the videos have absolutely blown up, with literally tens of thousands of views and lots of people having a comment on this topic. And I think one of the main reasons why these new ZBEs, or low emission zones, are so controversial is because it's one of the biggest changes that car owners have had to face over the last few decades, if not in a car owner's lifetime. Because previously you could buy a car and have it for as long as you want, as long as it was roadworthy, or at least you could drive it for as long as you wanted, as long as it was roadworthy. In Australia, for example, there were never any controls like this. You see lots of classic cars roaming the streets. In fact, it's one of the main things that you will see in Australia, people buying old cars. And this is one of the first times, I think, that there has been a government directive to take old cars off the road. Well, not even really old cars, cars that are only 15 or 16 years of age. And the one thing that gets my goat the most is when it comes to diesel cars, and just how quickly diesel cars in the European Union have fallen out of favour, considering that around 10 or 12 years ago, everybody was encouraged to buy a diesel engine car. We were told that diesel cars were more efficient, that you could do more kilometres on a tank. That's what we were told, and lots of people, including myself, went out and bought diesel cars. In fact, the car that I bought back in 2010, a Subaru Forester, was one of the first diesel engines that the car company Subaru produced. As far as I know, Subaru had always made gasoline engines, but because of the diesel craze in Europe, they changed in order to sell cars in that market, because in Europe, the 2 or 3 big car manufacturers, the PSA group in France and also the Volkswagen group in Germany, were diesel producers. In fact, those two companies, PSA and Volkswagen, spent billions and billions of euros promoting and developing diesel engines. But we all know what happened, the Dieselgate scandal in the United States. The Volkswagen group got caught with their pants down lying about diesel emissions, and everything changed since then. And suckers like me that were led down the diesel engine path are not happy with what's going on currently, because in a couple of years' time, my Subaru is not going to be roadworthy, even though it still drives incredibly well. In fact, I can't tell the difference between when I first bought it and now. So in the space of 5 or 6 years, as I said, diesel cars in the European Union have become enemy number one. You can get an idea down there of just how rough the seas are currently here in Portugal. Huge waves crashing onto those rocks. Now, another thing that has caught my attention in the press recently is the fact that COVID seems to be rearing its ugly head again, especially coming out of China. And the Madrid government has asked the central government to bring back restrictions on passengers coming from China at Spain's main airport in Madrid, Barajas. The Madrid community has also brought in more controls and checks at elderly residences because they're worried about this new strain of COVID sweeping through elderly residences like it did back in 2020. So more checks and controls there. Now, I don't think we're going to go back to those terrible days of 2020, but it is worrying for a lot of people to see the problems that China has currently with this terrible virus. China has obviously got it wrong again when it comes to dealing with COVID, and unfortunately the rest of the world in this globalized economy that we live in might have to pay the price of that, or at least with some restrictions coming back into force. So just when we thought that we had nipped this problem in the bud, it rears its ugly head again. Now, this is my last video for 2022. I will be back in 2023, of course, with more videos, and I just want to thank everybody who has watched the videos over the last year or so. people that have contributed in the comment section, people that have supported the channel through donations. Many thanks for that, and everything is greatly appreciated. Hopefully 2023 is a better year when it comes to things like inflation and the economy. 2022 was a bit rough, but hopefully those things are brought under control by central governments around the world. Now my microphone has given up, the battery has run dead, so I'm going to cut this video short. Have a fantastic start to 2023. As I said, I will be back in the new year with more videos, so hopefully I will see you then. Hasta luego, feliz año 2023. Bye bye.